defenseman. Monahan parked in front. Doc to Caulfield. Fires. Scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0. Welcome everybody to another episode of Habs After Dark. My name is Devin, and right off the bat, I will begin by apologizing for the quality of my voice. Those of you who were with us last night will know that I was not feeling well. I do actually feel a little bit better today. However, my voice doesn't sound like it. So lots to talk about, guys. What a game. 4-0. Montreal beats the defending Stanley Cup champion. Stand by for 1 second, guys. The Montreal Canadiens with a 4-0 victory. They defeat the defending Stanley Cup champion, Florida Panthers. Debut of Jakub Dobeš in goal, his first NHL game. Registers, amazingly, a shutout. Caden Primo is placed on waivers officially 1 hour into the game. That is now official. So there's lots for us to talk about here, guys. So why don't we get right to it? I see that we have Frank, Gary, and Adrian in the live. Frank says the new goaltender, Jakub, looks fantastic. I told you they were going to do something with Primo. Again, I'm not, if you're going to be here to play I told you so's, this is a very risky move. I'm extraordinarily happy and excited to see how well Jakub Dobeš performed today. I'm really, really happy to see that. But this was a risky move. I feel like this could have gone, very easily the other way. But I'm ecstatic that it hasn't. So again, what I said was that I didn't think that the Canadiens would waive Primo without having a solid plan in place to replace him. I didn't and still don't think that recalling Dobeš from the American Hockey League is the best option. It worked tonight. Hopefully it will continue to work. And again, if Jakub Dobeš turns out to be ready for the NHL, then I think that's great. I just don't think that it's ideal to bring up a young goaltender into the NHL in the middle of the season. Not because I don't think it can't work, just because I think it's very risky and there's a strong chance that it wouldn't work. So, again, I don't want to be talking on a negative after that performance. Obviously, there's a lot of positive to talk about, and I think we should do that. But again, I don't think this is a case of I told you so's. So yeah, if you want to do that, you can do that. So, yeah, it was a great game, Gary. I thought it was really fun to watch. It wasn't just Jakub Dobeš. I thought the whole team played well. They played the kind of game that you need to play against the Stanley Cup champion, one of the better teams in your conference, one of the better teams in the league. And that's the way you have to play against a team like that. And they did it, right? So, they handled the pressure that Florida put on them when they needed to, and they took advantage of their opportunities when they had them. Right? So that's kind of, something that they haven't really done so far this year. And this is what they're working towards. A game like this is what this team has been working towards for the last, half a season or so. Excuse me, guys. So yeah, so that was a positive, in every way. Obviously, Jakub Dobeš, a positive. Kirby Dach, a positive. 2 goals for Dach, 2 assists for Newhook. So yeah, we're seeing some of the things that we're missing from this lineup and missing from this team. We're seeing them come back to life, and it hopefully will, will continue, and they'll be able to carry the momentum of this win and this, their performance today. What a great start for Dobeš. First real NHL game and first NHL shutout. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a spectacular story. A wonderful story. I don't know if you guys were watching the game on RDS, but if you weren't, they interviewed Dobeš after the game. Really good kid. Seems really down to earth. Talked about, wanting to go see his mother so that he could give her a big hug. All kinds of, cool stuff like that. So it's a great story. And again, I feel like bringing him up at this point in the season was a very risky move, and it still may be a very risky move. But for today, it worked very well, and I think we can all have a smile on our face and be happy about that. So, yeah. So welcome everybody to the show, Habs After Dark. I hope everybody had a good Christmas break. I hope everybody spent time with family and friends. I hope Santa Claus found you and all that good stuff. I hope you ate lots of turkey, candies, cookies, all that stuff that we do at this time of year, whether you're celebrating Christmas, whether you're celebrating Hanukkah, whether you're celebrating Kwanzaa, or any of the other holidays that we celebrate this time of year. But welcome back. The Canadiens are back after a short break. Again, they're doing a road trip. This is a very, very important road trip for the team. This is a road trip that historically has the Canadiens have struggled with. The post-Christmas road trip, it's kind of been the make or break for the last few seasons for the Montreal Canadiens. So hopefully, obviously today is a great start in that in that sense, and that hopefully they can carry that over. Tomorrow afternoon they play in Tampa, and then they head to Las Vegas, and then they head, I believe, there's somewhere else, and then Colorado. So, hey, Larry, what's going on, man? It's great to see you. Thank you for coming. It was a great game. It was really, really fun to watch. Yes, Frank, it was nice to see Kirby get 2 goals. He must feel good, right? Absolutely, and for Kirby, I think the break was probably a good thing for him. He got away from, he got away from Montreal. He got away from the media. He got away from all the people who are questioning, when's he going to be better? When's he going to come back to form? When's this going to happen? When's that going to happen? And I think it was probably good for him to get a break and to get away from that. 2 solid goals. Alex Newhook as well, right? Alex Newhook was 6 goals and 0 assists coming into the game tonight in 34 games. And he registered his first 2 assists of the season today. So again, it's great to see him get off the schneid, and hopefully, just like anything else, you hope that this is the new norm and that they can continue to progress from this. Both of those guys, Patrick Laine looked really good today as well, and that second line, if that second line can get rolling, then I think it means really good things for this team going forward. So just having a quick little beer, guys. The holidays are not completely over for me. Yes, I'm a happy camper too, Larry. I'm a happy camper too. If you're watching the show, guys, whether it's live or in a replay, please subscribe. Help us grow our channel. Help us grow the number of people that we have here. We're at about 175 subscribers right now. We would love for there to be more. I know that you guys that are here right now are largely regulars, and I think you're already subscribed, but YouTube says that only about 35% of the people who view the show are actually subscribed. So would you please do that if you can? Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. If you want to give us a thumbs up, I don't see any thumbs up yet today, so the next thumbs up will be the first of the day. So if you want to be first in line to do that, hit that thumbs up. Oh, somebody won it. I don't know who it was. It doesn't tell me who did it, but we have 1 thumbs up. So if you want to be the next, feel free to hit that button. So let's review the game real quickly here, guys. I'm going to go right into the scoreboard, if that's all right with you guys. There's 2 thumbs up. Thank you very much, y'all. I appreciate it. And here we have our, this is our famous scoreboard, guys. Montreal Canadiens, as I said, 4-0. We see that the Canadiens were outshot today, 33-24. They had more high danger scoring chances, 9-7, and the expected goals were relatively even, 2.2 to 1.7 in favor of the Panthers. So those numbers are pretty good. Again, like I said, it's more of a matter for me that the Canadiens, we're playing against a better team. They handled a better team. They handled the pressure that better team put on them. And they didn't break. They bent, they didn't break. And then when they got their own opportunities, they took advantage of them. The Jake Evans shorthanded goal. How many times have we seen Montreal Canadiens miss on breakaways in the last couple of weeks, right? Kirby Dach made no mistake. He buried that opportunity. How many times have we seen Kirby Dach not score when he gets that open net? He gets the puck with a really good scoring chance. He took advantage of that opportunity today. So thank you, RDP. I appreciate it. I think everybody that's here right now is probably subscribed, but if you're not, that would be awesome as well. Larry, I hope the Habs have turned the corner. I think, again, I don't think the development of the Montreal Canadiens under this rebuild will be linear. I don't think it will be a straight upward line. I think there will be setbacks, but I think they certainly have turned a corner. I think they are certainly in a better spot than they have been previously this season. I think they are moving in the right direction. They're starting to grasp the lessons that the coaching staff is teaching them. They're learning how to win. They're learning how to be a winning team. They're learning how to be pros. They're learning all that good stuff. So I appreciate that, Gary. Thank you very much. So we got 4 thumbs up there now, so I appreciate that. So let's go through the scoreboard real quick. Let's go through the goals. Again, the Canadiens, the first period was a pretty... I think the two teams were, both coming back from the holidays. There wasn't a ton of action in that first period. The Canadiens held their own. I thought they were pretty evenly matched. I think as fans, we were all waiting to see how Dobish would respond to playing in his first NHL game, and we were looking to see how the Canadiens would respond to, coming back from the break. But not only that, but also coming back from, the Canadiens haven't shown, whether it's this year or in years past, that they've dealt with adversity very well. Coming into the season, all of the stuff around, the Laine injury, the Reinbacher injury, and all the stuff that was going on in the preseason, the team kind of, went into a bit of a spin cycle when that happened, right? They didn't play well. They didn't respond well. They didn't handle the controversy. They didn't handle the distraction. They didn't handle the noise very well. It affected them negatively. So, for me, it was important to see how they would respond to that today. And, the first period, I thought they responded quite well. The shots were 10-9, so they stood their own against Florida. When Florida put pressure on them, they were able to keep them off the scoreboard. And they came out of that first period with a 0-0 tie. And then the second period, again, we were still, for me watching the game, you still weren't sure how the game was going to go. The Canadiens, again, have had a history of not playing a full 60 minutes. Were they going to show up to start the second period, playing well, or were they going to struggle? Were they, were the Panthers going to overwhelm them? Being the better team, did it take everything that the Canadiens had just to stay in the game in the first period, and then the Panthers were going to take over? No, that didn't happen. The Canadiens came out early, 1:39 into the period. Kirby Dach from Newhook and Goalie. It was a really slick passing play. So to me, that was a big part of the goal too. It wasn't just so much that the second line scored a goal; it's the way they scored a goal. Right? They scored on a really nice passing play. Laine carries the puck into the zone. He goes all the way down behind the Panthers' goal, comes out the other side along the boards. When he gets to the boards, he meets a little bit of contact from the Florida defenders. He gets the puck to the point back to Caden Goalie. Goalie makes a really, really nice seam pass all the way across the ice to Alex Newhook, who's standing sort of in the right-hand circle a little bit. And Newhook doesn't hesitate at all. For a guy who's got 0 assists so far this year, no hesitation from Newhook. It's a one-touch pass across the crease to Kirby Dach backdoor, and Kirby Dach puts it in the net, right? He doesn't get everything on the shot, but he makes no mistake. The puck's in the net. And you just saw the smile on his face. You saw, Patrick Laine, right? Jumped on his back. These guys are playing for each other. They love each other. They've built a really strong camaraderie. They've built a really strong team. And when Kirby Dach got that goal, you could see not just how happy he was to get that monkey off his back, but you could also see how his teammates were happy to get that monkey off his back. And, that's what I mean when I talk about pride and when I talk about this being a team, right? There's a lot more to a rebuild than just, the roster and the scoreboard. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't get to see. with respect to chemistry and team building and, these guys becoming friends and people who care about each other. And it was really evident after that goal by Doc. About 10 minutes later, at the 13:51 mark, Kirby Dach scores his second of the game. So he scores his third and fourth of the season this year from Newhook again. Newhook with his second assist at 13:51. Again, a lot of the work is done here by Patrik Laine, right? The veteran on this line. Laine creates a turnover in the neutral zone. The puck ends up with Alex Newhook. Alex Newhook picks up the puck just inside of his own blue line. He skates out across the blue line. And as he does so, he spots Kirby Dach streaking behind the Panthers defender, and he hits him with a perfect pass, right? Really good timing by Dach, and really good job by Newhook to see him and to hit him with a perfect pass. Kirby Dach ends up going in all alone on Spencer Knight. He dekes out Spencer Knight, and he makes no mistake and puts the puck in on the backhand. Again, we've seen the Montreal Canadiens miss on a ton of breakaways in the last few weeks. But that wasn't the case here. Kirby Dach made no mistake. And again, if everybody was happy for Kirby Dach when he scored his first goal of the game, they were doubly happy when he scored his second goal of the game, right? And this was, again, the smile on his face, his line mates, Newhook getting another assist, all of that. Again, I don't, expect that this means that they're back. Pardon me. But it's definitely a wonderful step in the right direction for these guys. And I'm really happy to see Dach get back on the board. I'm really happy to see him happy playing. And again, I hope that he can just continue to carry that and that the media will leave him alone a little bit and allow him to just continue to improve. So the Canadiens are up 2-0. Things are looking really, really good. Happy for everything. Dach with 2 goals, Newhook with 2 assists. But that's not it. Jake Evans with a shorthanded goal at 17-19, unassisted goal. He creates a turnover. He knocks the puck away from Sam Reinhart at the blue line. Reinhart rushes over to recover the loose puck after Evans has knocked it away from him. Evans pursues the play, and for some reason, Reinhart just turns around and fires the puck right onto the stick of Jake Evans. Jake Evans goes in. He's 2-on-1. Him and Armia are 2-on-1. Against Ekblad, I think it was. Ekblad didn't have a great game tonight. So Evans and Armia are going in 2-on-1 after the turnover. And Evans uses Armia as a bit of a decoy, and he just buries a wrist shot. Like he just puts everything he has behind a wrist shot, and he rips it past Spencer Knight. So it's 3-0 after the second period. The shots are 24-17 in favor of Florida. But the high danger scoring chances are heavily in favor of the Canadiens, 7-1. Pardon me, after 2 periods, and it's a 3-0 game for Montreal. But again, with the Florida Panthers, you're still not sure, right? You're still not out of the woods with the Florida Panthers. Anything can happen. These guys are the Stanley Cup champions. They can score goals quickly, and the Canadiens have shown, a history of letting down a little bit, so far this year. So you're not 100% out of the woods just yet, but the Canadiens do come out and they play quite well in the third period. I think Florida played better in the third period as well. They got a little bit more pressure. They had a little bit more jump in their game, but the Canadiens were able to stick with them, right? They didn't, they didn't sort of lose any of their mojo. They didn't let off the pedal. All those good cliches. They continued and they played really, really well, and they kept Florida off the board. At 14-17, Cole Caulfield put the final nail in the coffin of the Panthers on a really nice play from Juraj Slafkovsky. Barkov turned the puck over at the Canadiens' blue line. The puck ends up on Slavkovsky's stick. Slavkovsky carries the puck into the Florida zone. He's sort of way off on the far end, on the left-hand side boards. He hesitates a little bit. He gives Cole Caulfield an opportunity to try and get open. Caulfield just blows around Aaron Ekblad. I don't know what Ekblad was doing there again. I thought he had he really struggled today. Caulfield just, blows around Ekblad, gets past him, gets open in front of the net, and, Slavkovsky's patience pays off, and he fires a perfect on-the-tape cross-ice pass to Caulfield, who directs the puck past Spencer Knight. Again, a really nice play by both Slavkovsky and Caulfield. Caulfield had been buzzing for the better part of the game. I thought he had a lot of jump in his game all night, and it was really nice to see him get rewarded for that. So at 14-17, that's the final goal. It's 4-0 for Montreal. It's Cole Caulfield's 18th goal of the season. It's Juraj Slafkovsky's 16th assist of the season. And that's all she wrote. The Canadiens managed to hold on. I don't even say hold on. That implies that Florida kind of had the carry of the game. Montreal just continued to play their game, and they finished things off. And the final score, of course, was 4-0 for the Canadiens. Big win. Shutout for Jakub Dobeš. 2 goals for Kirby Dach, 2 assists for Alex Newhook. I think you're getting a bit of a preview maybe of what we're going to see with the A team here in a minute. But just a really good game in so many different ways for the Canadiens, and such a good emotional, uplifting kind of game for the team that hopefully they can take that momentum and that confidence into the game tomorrow against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So let's get back to the questions here. Adrian says the Montreal Canadiens' future is looking brighter and brighter. Yeah, I mean it is, and I think this I get that some fans kind of get down and depressed and maybe panic a little bit when the Canadiens aren't playing well, but this is what they've been working for all along, right? This is what they've been working towards all along. The future has always been bright. It's just a matter of getting there, and it was never going to be easy getting there, and there was always going to be setbacks and frustrations and hard times. I mean, if rebuilds were easy and everything sort of came simply, in a rebuild, then everybody would do it, right? So again, I think that the future has always been bright. It's just that we're sort of, we're getting further down the line on this rebuild, and we're seeing, the plan that the Canadiens have had in place. We're seeing, that plan come to fruition, and we're seeing, things, the puzzle pieces start to fall into place. Now that's, again, that doesn't mean that, this team won't have any setbacks. I highly suspect that they will, right? It's not going to be, a straight upward shot now towards a Stanley Cup championship. There's going to be, hurdles and speed bumps along the way, and they're going to take steps backwards. But today was definitely a step forward. In fact, the last couple of weeks have been a major step forward. But that doesn't mean that there won't be a step or two backwards. The kids are growing up and playing like a team. Exactly. That's what they've been working towards, Larry. They've been working towards this. This is what the coaches have been talking about. We're teaching them how to be winners, how to win at hockey, how to be, how to win in the NHL. Tyler Brito, I hope Primo doesn't play another game for the Habs. Figured he was done when Monty started back-to-back nights versus Detroit. Well, I mean, that's a pretty harsh thing to say, Tyler. I get it. You're a fan and you're emotional about it, but at the end of the day, these are human beings, right? And Caden Bremo isn't, he's not playing badly on purpose. He's not going on the ice saying, screw the Montreal Canadiens fans. I'm going to play bad and I'm going to piss them off. He's a human being. He's a 26-year-old man whose, dream is to play in the NHL. And, it obviously hasn't gone well for him this year. So, to dance on his grave on a day like this is not really, it's not a, again, it's a pretty, I don't want to say it's classless, but it's certainly not very classy. Caden Primo's a 26-year-old kid, man. He's somebody's kid. He's somebody's, brother. He's I don't understand why you would take any type of joy out of Caden Primo's failure. So, I would be very happy to see Caden Primo succeed in the NHL someday, whether it's here or somewhere else. So, I would suggest that probably should be the way you treat this too, if you're taking any advice. Big win for the Habs, Dobeš and Dach. Absolutely, Claude. It was a great game. It was fun to watch. A step in the right direction, and I think, as Canadiens fans, we should all have a smile on our face after that game. This will be great for their confidence, absolutely. Again, that's all part of this, right? It's carrying the momentum and carrying the confidence and carrying it from game to game to game and becoming consistent, right? So that games like the one they played today become the way they normally play as opposed to being the exception, right? Like earlier in the year, they would play a really good game, but that was the exception. They struggled otherwise. That shorthanded goal was a key for the Habs. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing that kind of play from Jake Evans all season long. And again, when you talk about contending teams, you talk about teams that get contributions from, every part of the lineup. Whether it's the first line, second line, third line, or fourth line, it's you're getting contributions from everywhere. And when you get contributions from guys like Jake Evans and Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson and even like Armia and Dvorak and guys like that, I mean, it's you look at a team like Florida today. You look at their roster; they have a balanced roster from top to bottom. Did you have for your All-Stars? I don't know what you mean by that, Frank. I'm not sure. We'll get to. Oh, you're talking about the. We're talking about the A team. We'll get there in a sec. I'm just going to get through the questions. They played shutdown hockey. Yeah. I don't know if I would call it shutdown hockey, Gary. I get your point. What I would say is that for me, it's hard to shut down a team like Florida. You can't shut them down. What you do is you minimize their opportunities and you restrict them to as few opportunities as you possibly can. And when they do get opportunities, you try to only like restrict it to just one chance, right? You don't want to see them spend 3, 4, 5 minutes in your zone. You want them to get into your zone and they get a scoring chance or they get a nice shot and then you get it out. Other than that, that one, I think it was in the second period, that one situation where they had some prolonged pressure in the Canadian zone that ended with the Jack Eye Greer fight. I don't really think that there was any real situation in that game where they had any prolonged pressure on the Canadiens. All of their chances were sort of, one and done situations, and I think that's what you're looking for from the Canadiens. Adrian says, "I'm not going to lie. I thought Florida was going to get some out of their pockets. Florida liked to draw teams into bullshit this season, but this season they're not doing that recently." I think you're talking about like them trying to draw the Canadiens into sort of a greasy game. I thought that Matthew Tkachuk was pretty quiet tonight. He's sort of the ringleader of that kind of thing. I don't think he contributed in any real significant way tonight. So we'll see again. Like did the Canadiens catch the Florida Panthers? With a little bit of a holiday hangover, maybe. And that'll be why it'll be important to see how they come out and play tomorrow against Tampa. Right? Again, you take the teams that they put in front of you, and you have to beat them. That's how hockey works. That's how sports work, right? You can't use that as an excuse, and you can't diminish a win because the other team. It's the Stanley Cup champions, regardless of how you beat them. That's a big thing. Primo needs a reboot. I agree, Gary. I mean, again, he's a kid whose dream is to play in the NHL. I don't see any reason to denigrate him or to talk badly about him. Realistically, he had 7 bad games. He played quite well for the Canadiens last year, did his job as a backup. Prior to that, he did quite well. He did quite well in the American Hockey League, and he was a good goalie in the NCAA. So I would love to see Caden Primo do well. I mean, I don't cheer against players, even if they play on other teams. I mean, obviously, there's some players in the league that I don't particularly like. But again, I'm not a big fan of cheering against human beings who are, simply out there trying to earn a living. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think that any of us are going to debate that Primo struggled so far this year. I don't think any of us are going to debate that he probably needs to be somewhere else other than in Montreal right now. But that said, I'm not going to cheer for the fact that he's gone and go around yelling and screaming about how I wish he would never play another game for the Canadiens. That's not my style. This is not my style. What's going on, Entertap? Well, you're here just in time. Let's do this. Let's do this. There it is, guys. There's your A team for tonight. There shouldn't be any surprises there, I don't think. Kirby Dach, Jakub Dobeš, Lane Hudson, and Alex Newhook. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think Jakub Dobeš if we were putting these in order, would probably be at the top of the list. But I think I've said this before. If I make this list, I try to, start making it midway through the third period. I really hesitate to put a goalie on the list before the game is over because I don't want to jinx anybody, especially when the goalie is in a shutout. So I kind of waited until the end of the game to put Dobesh there. But I definitely had Kirby Dach. I had him at the top of the list from the very beginning. So Dach with his third and fourth goals of the year, certainly offensive production wise, his best game of the season. Big smile on his face, happy. His teammates, his line mates. Again, we talked about it a minute ago. Just how excited Laine was when he scored that goal and sort of jumped on his back, and it just was really fun to watch a kid. Again, getting back to the fact that these are human beings, right? These are kids. These are husbands, these are, sons, these are fathers, these are guys who are, out there making a living. When you see them smiling and enjoying themselves on the ice, it should give you some enjoyment as well. And it certainly does for me. Dobesh, again, great story. Shutout, first game in the NHL. Played really well. Stopped 33 shots, I think. Pardon me. Stopped 33 shots. Looked good from beginning to end. Didn't really falter at any point. I think there was one goal post in the game, but played a fantastic game, right? I think it was a bit of a risky move for the Canadiens to call him up at this stage of the season, and it could have gone badly. A kid playing his first game in the NHL against the Stanley Cup champions, coming off the Christmas break. All of these things, it could have certainly gone in the other direction. But Jakub Dobesh walked in there with ice water in his veins, and he stood tall, and he gave the Canadiens the kind of performance that they needed, which is great. Alex Newhook assisted on both Kirby Dach goals. I think that Kirby Dach. I think that Alex Newhook has played a lot better than people have given him credit for so far this season. I don't think that he has been nearly as bad as his numbers would seem to indicate. I like his speed. I like what he brings to the game. I like what he brings to his line. And it was nice to see him get rewarded for that tonight, right? And for a guy who has 0 assists on the season, he made 2 really nice plays to set up goals for Kirby Dach. The first one, of course, being that one-touch cross-ice pass backdoor to Kirby Dach, and the other one, was spotting Dach streaking through the neutral zone, getting behind the Florida defense, and being able to put a perfect pass on his tape and sending him in, all alone in stride. For a guy, like I said, who hasn't had any assists this year, I thought he looked great. I thought he did really, really well. My last guy on my list is Lane Hutson. Again, there's a number of guys I could have picked here. Jake Evans obviously would have been a decent choice. I thought Caden Goalie played well. I liked Arbor Jacki. Arbor Jacki again is just becoming a steady force on the blue line. He's doesn't do anything fancy, but he's steady out there. Stood up for his goaltender and his teammates by fighting AJ Greer. When he was at the end of a 2-minute long shift, he was exhausted. You could even see it before the fight that he was exhausted just being out there, let alone having to fight. And you could also see AJ Greer's eyes light up when he saw the opportunity to fight Arbor Jacki in that circumstance, given that he had just come on the ice himself. But Lane Hutson, for me, was solid tonight. I could go back and look at some stats. I had some stats earlier about Lane Hutson's numbers tonight as far as like expected goals percentage and things like that. Let's have a quick gander here. Stand by, guys. Bear with me. Stand by. I should have had these ready to go, and I didn't. Expected goals percentage for Lane Hutson tonight was 78.5%. Just really good numbers for Lane Hutson. On ice goal differential, expected goal differential 1.13. So, yeah, I thought Hudson again. Hudson has played well most games this year, and I've been pretty happy with him. But I think tonight he stood out especially well. So, if you guys do you guys agree with these four guys? Is there anybody that you think you would have put on this list? They would have been members of your 14 that I haven't included. Are there any of those guys that you don't think deserve to be there? We try. I want this to be interactive, guys. So I get that I'm here talking a lot, but feel free to speak up and say your piece. And if any of those guys you don't agree with, then I'd love to talk to you about it. So let me know. Entertap says good overall team effort and victory today. I agree. I mean, we can sit here and talk positively about it all day. I think it was a really fun game to watch. It was a game where I think as fans we would have been nervous to see how they were going to come out. We were nervous to see how the Dobesh experiment was going to pan out. And yeah, everything seemed to turn up aces today for them. So let's hope that stays the course. I like the tall goalies. They seem to cover more of the net. Yes. I don't think you're alone on that, Frank. I think that is a sentiment that is shared by most hockey people, most scouts, most general managers. It's it's a pretty common thing, or it's a pretty accepted thing in the NHL now that unless you're over 6 feet tall, you're probably not going to get drafted in the NHL, and it's rare to see any goaltenders that aren't 6 feet tall anymore in the league. UC Saros being one example of an exception. But again, a spectacular goaltender, right? Who makes up for his lack of size. A good example is I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. Mathis Russo, right? Mathis Russo has been the best goalie in the Quebec Junior Hockey League for 3 years in a row. Was the starting goalie for the World Junior team last year for Team Canada, and can't even get drafted because he's 5'11", right? He doesn't have that extra inch that puts him over the top to be 6 feet tall. So again, there seems to be an understanding in the league now that you have to be at least 6 feet tall in order to play goalie. Adrian says, I'm surprised with Dobesh. He got called up after his injury. Yeah, I think he played a couple games since his injury. I don't want to say that I'm surprised about how he performed tonight. I will say that I wasn't sure how he was going to perform. I was nervous that this wasn't going to work out because, frankly, if it didn't work out, it was not a very good move by the Canadiens. And I mean, it may yet be. This is only one game. But this could, I am not a big fan of bringing up a rookie goalie in the middle of the season, especially when you don't have a backup plan in place. When you don't have, if Dobesh fails, if Dobesh doesn't work out, there's no safety net. What are you going to do? Are you going to bring Caden Primo back up? Even if Caden Primo goes down and plays really well in the American Hockey League, are you bringing Caden Primo back up? Because if you do, then he has to go back on waivers to go back down. I believe it works that way. So again, this whole move, this whole Dobesh thing was done without any real backup plan. And so far it's working, and I hope that it does, obviously. I would love to see Jakub. I mean, if Jakub Dobesh can become, a 9-10 goaltender in the NHL, if he can do all this stuff, then I'm all for it. But again, I just worry that it's not the right move and that they don't have a plan in place to, if it doesn't work. Claude says Evans played a good game. Absolutely. I mean, that's become the norm for Jake Evans now. You could argue that Jake Evans has been the best player on the team for the last several weeks. I think it was, what did they say, 4 goals, and he's got 4 games in a row where he scored a goal. So yeah, I mean, Jake Evans has been a steady performer. I hope that they re-sign him. I hope that they keep him on this team. I would love for Jake Evans to be on this team long term. I think that he would be a fantastic fourth line player, whether it's on the wing or center. I think that if the Canadiens had a fourth line composed of or comprised of, Owen Beck and Jake Evans, and Luke Tuck or Florian Jack-Eye or somebody like that, or Emil Heineman, I think that would be a really great spot to be for the Canadiens. I thought the refs were. I mean, again, the refs didn't call much. I think there were just the 2 penalty calls in the entire game. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. The 2 calls and then the 2 minor penalties, and then of course the 2 fighting majors to Greer and Jack-Eye. The refs stayed out of the way tonight. I don't feel like the game really called for a lot of penalties, but it was nice to see the referees let the guys play. And when they don't call anything, then at least they've been consistent, right? If they don't call, if they only call 2 penalties during the course of the game, then they're probably being consistent in letting the teams play. So Dobesh looked so calm. Yeah, he did. I mean, again, for a kid who's playing his first career NHL game, he looked calm, cool, and collected in the net. Dare I say, a little Carey Price-like. Again, I'm not comparing him to Carey Price. I'm not putting those expectations on him. But just, the level of calmness that he showed tonight, just not just in his demeanor, but also in his play, right? Not sort of diving all over the place, not flopping around, more of a Carey Price than a Dominic Hasek, right? Tonight. So, hey, Habinations, what's going on? How are you? Thank you for coming to say hello. I really appreciate it. I can't remember if I met you on the show, on Coach Frenchie's show the other day or not. I don't know if you were part of the live where everybody came on the screen or not. But it's great to see you. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. Feel free to jump in if you have any questions or comments. Dobesh looks calm. You said that, Frank. I gotcha. So again, guys, if you guys are all in favor of that A team, again, if you have any other guys that you think deserve a spot on that A team, definitely let me know. Again, if you're here in the live, if you're watching the show, then I would ask that you subscribe. If you enjoy the content, we go live with Habs After Dark every night or every afternoon, I guess, in this case. After the Canadiens games, we're usually on the air about 15 minutes after the game ends. And we do a review of the game. We talk about the game, and we invite you to ask your questions, your comments, and we have a bit of a back and forth, and we talk about the game. We stay on for a little over an hour, depending on how well things are rolling. But if you are interested in that, if you're enjoying the content, then I would ask that you please subscribe. It definitely helps the channel. It helps me, and it helps us grow. The thumbs up help. I just saw that. I don't know who that was. I think it was probably Habinations who gave us that. Thank you very much, pal. I appreciate it. All those things help. There's another one. Keep them coming, guys. I appreciate it. Tap that. I don't know if you can tap the like button in my lives yet. But anyways, the more subscribers that we get, the more we can do YouTube. Once I get to 500 subscribers, will allow me to do some more fun stuff. Those of you who are over on Coach Frenchie's channel have seen the kind of different things that he can do as far as, giving special rewards and things to subscribers and what have you. But I need to get to 500 subscribers before I can do any of that fun stuff. So if you're watching in a replay, same thing. Feel free to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell. And let's get as many people in here as we can. If you have people, friends, guys who are on YouTube and on the internet who you think would enjoy this content, then it would be awesome if you would invite them to come over and check it out too. Larry says, how about shutout for your first NHL game? He's on cloud 9 right now. Absolutely. It doesn't get any better than that, does it, Larry? I don't know whether you watch the games in French or in English, Larry. I'm assuming that being in Arizona that you're probably watching the games in English. But Dobesh was interviewed after the game by the commentators on RDS. The interview was conducted in English because Dobesh doesn't speak French. But he was you could tell, he was ear to ear smile. He talked about, the fact that his mother was visiting him for Christmas when he got the call up, and that he had to make quick arrangements to fly his mother down to Florida. The plan had been for her to be in Laval. He obviously would have played for Laval last night if he hadn't been called up, but the plans changed. So he arranged to have his mother's name is Vera. He arranged to have his mother flown down to Florida And he talked about how he couldn't wait to end the interview so that he could go and see her and give her a big hug. So, yeah, again, a great story. If you've got a heart, it kind of, hits the heartstrings a little bit when you see a kid, 22 years old, who's realizing his dream, and it's cool to see. And it's fun to see a kid, achieve a goal like that. Take Hudson out of the A team, and as the fourth spot, put rest of the team. So are you saying that you don't think Hudson played well, or you just think you would rather just include him in the rest of the team for playing really well? I don't disagree with the second. If you're proposing the second thing, I don't really have an issue with that. I think there's a number of guys, like I said, who could have been in that fourth spot on the A team. I think that Patrick Laine could have been there. Jake Evans could have been there. Arbor Jacki could have been there. There's all kinds of guys that played well tonight. Caden Goalie, I thought, played well tonight. Slavkovsky, looked good tonight. So again, I don't have any real issue with any of those suggestions. I didn't even consider Dobish as a prospect, so yeah, it's good. Yeah, he's kind of flown under the radar a little bit, Habinations, hasn't he? Like he's, everyone's been talking more so about. Obviously, Caden Primo was the prospect coming up, and then they're talking about Jacob Fowler and a number of other guys. But Dobesh has done well for himself. We had a pretty good career in the NCAA, and he's been toiling down in Laval, doing his job and just improving and getting better game after game after game. And it's nice to see him get that opportunity. How did I get sick through the holidays there, buddy? And hope I feel better soon. I just being around lots of people, I assume, Frank. Being around lots of people, lots of little kids with snotty noses and all that good stuff. So I actually feel quite a bit better now than I did yesterday. If you were on the show last night, you would have seen that I was kind of miserable. My voice sounds terrible right now, but I do feel a little bit better. My head's still a little bit congested, so... Larry, I don't watch the game. I listen. I'm an old. Oh wow, awesome, Larry. I love that. That's old school. I used to do that when I was a kid. The games weren't all. You're older than me, probably by a little bit, but you and I can both remember days when every game wasn't on TV, right? So when I was a kid, obviously the Saturday night games were on TV. When I was a little kid, only every second game was on TV for the Canadiens, right? 1 week would be the Maple Leafs and the next week would be the Canadiens, and they would rotate back and forth. And it wasn't until I moved to Montreal that we would get, every Canadiens game would be on every Saturday night. And then we would get, Méchant Mardi, the crazy Tuesdays, I guess it was, so every Tuesday night game, the Canadiens would be on TVA. And so, otherwise you were listening to the game on the radio. And so I would go to bed with a little transistor radio and, hide it from my parents. And I would either jam it between my bed frame and the mattress or inside my pillowcase. And I would listen to the game on the radio. I would listen to Dick Irvin and, Dick Irvin would do the local Montreal radio on CFCF Montreal. So that's how I grew up doing the games too, Larry. It's kind of weird now because I'm sitting here now. I got a computer screen in front of me here. I got a TV screen in front of me there. I've got a laptop in front of me there. And, I'm watching, 2 or 3 games at a time and doing the show and doing all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of I guess I'm not old school anymore. So I like coaches play-by-play. Yeah, I do too. I don't like... I shouldn't say this. I like coaches play-by-play, but I like to watch the game as well. I like to watch the game and I like to focus on it. And I find it hard to have coaches on at the same time as I watch the game. I take notes when I watch the game because I know I'm going to have to talk about it afterwards. So, I tend to like to go into my own world a little bit and watch the game. So, awesome, Dominique. Tu écoutes le match en français ou en anglais à la radio, Dominique? Again, I'm assuming you're French by your name. I shouldn't do that, I suppose, but You've addressed me in English. I should address you back in English. But I do want to start talking some more. I want to do some more French on here. I want to speak French. I want some French, French people on here, some French subscribers. So, Dominique, if you haven't subscribed yet, welcome and thank you for coming by. And feel free to subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. So, next up, guys, we're going to go to our report card, and I think it's going to be pretty predictable again. Parfait, Dominique, bienvenue. Bienvenue à notre émission Habs After Dark. So, stand by, guys. Yeah, so I think the report card is pretty predictable. The Canadiens get check marks across the board. They've gotten check marks across the board. I think it's like 3 of the last 4 games. Both of the Detroit games, they got check marks across the board. And, of course, they're going to get that today. This is basically my way of judging the team and how they played, without, focusing only on the scoreboard. When you're rebuilding, sometimes the way you play and how well you play is determined by other than, the final score. So, there's a couple of different things I look for. Obviously, 3 or fewer goals against. There's a standard in the NHL. The number is 240, right? 240. If you allow fewer than 240 goals in a season, there's a good chance you make the playoffs. If you score more than 240 goals in a season, there's a good chance that you make the playoffs. And if you do both of those things, if you allow fewer than 240 and you score more than 240, then I think you have a really good chance of making the playoffs. It's pretty rare for you to miss the playoffs in those circumstances. Special teams tonight was a bit of a wash. There were just, like I said earlier, there were just 2 power plays, 1 for each team. The Canadiens didn't manage to score a goal on the power play. I really thought the Florida penalty kill looked really, really good. That's a pretty solid-looking penalty kill. Lots of pressure. They're pretty good on the penalty kill. But again, the Canadiens didn't score on the power play. They also killed off the 1 penalty against them. So I'll give them a check mark on that. It was a bit of a wash. Engagement, effort, and energy. I thought there was a ton of energy. They were very engaged coming off the holiday break. I thought they looked really good. Progress, again, I think they're moving in the right direction. They showed pride. Again, when I talk about pride, that's a bit of a wishy-washy kind of thing to try and judge. But again, to me, it was like, we saw Arbor Jackeye stand up for his goalie. We saw, the Canadiens get on top of guys a couple times for getting too close to Dobesh after the whistle. And we saw the excitement that, that the team had for both of Kirby Dach's goals. Like, how excited did they get when he scored those goals? You could see the smiles on their faces and how happy they were for him. You saw how excited they were for Dobesh at the end of the game, right? The Panthers put on a little bit of pressure there at the very end of the game, and you could tell, guys were laying out in front of pucks. Guys were blocking shots. They were not going to let that kid lose his shutout, that late in the game. And that, that to me is a sign of pride, pride in their team, pride in their teammates, pride in what they're building, and the fact that they're all, working towards the same thing. And I thought that was really nice to watch. Discipline, just the 1 penalty tonight. Again, I have a hard time judging discipline with the way the NHL is officiated these days. But again, they're just the 1 penalty tonight. I'm trying to think what it was. There was just the 1 power play against tonight for the Canadiens. It was a penalty. It was a Dvorak for slashing on Verhaeghe. So not a major penalty, not a big deal. Not a major penalty, obviously, as it wasn't 5 minutes, but not a big deal penalty. And I thought they played a full 60 minutes. Obviously, there were parts of the game where Florida carried the game. But again, the Canadiens were in it from the very beginning to the very end. I didn't think there was any part of the game where they looked like they were being dominated. I don't think there was any part of the game where they looked like they were in trouble or in jeopardy of falling apart or anything like that. So again, it's check marks across the board for everybody. I don't know if any of you agree or disagree. Si vous avez des questions, si vous êtes d'accord avec the report card, si vous êtes d'accord avec mon sommaire, si vous êtes en désaccord, si vous voulez questionner un de ces catégories et le jugement que j'ai donné. J'aimerais bien savoir, vous pouvez me donner en anglais ou en français. Ask me anything, guys. If you agree with the check marks, if you think that there's any of these categories that you think that the Canadians didn't deserve a check mark in, and you think that I made a mistake, then let me know as well. So, we're here to talk about it. We're probably going to be on the air for another 15 or 20 minutes or so. Let's talk about it. We can talk about the scoreboard. We can talk about the A team. We can talk about anything you guys want. So let's fire away. I see what's Habination say. It's easier to get information now versus when we had to wait for the hockey news or daily paper. Yeah, absolutely. Us older guys will remember, waking up in the morning and grabbing the newspaper so that we could look at the box score, see how the Canadians did. I mean, if we didn't, if we weren't able to listen to the game on the radio, I think it was every Tuesday, they would publish the scoring leaders and the stats leaders. You would get, your top scorers and, all the different categories. You would get the stats from the league. And you were always excited to see that. But nowadays it's kind of like it's instant, right? You get instant gratification on your phone. Which is good in some ways and bad in others, I suppose. But it's you're right, Habinations. It is a lot easier to get the information. French or English, in my early days, it was only radio, no TV. And when Saturday night came, I would watch CBC, Larry says. After Saturday night game, the talk around Sunday dinner table was always the play of the Habs. Okay, so Larry, so you're in Arizona now, but you're a Canadian. You grew up or spent a part of your life in Canada. Is that what I'm hearing from you? Unfortunately for me, or fortunately maybe, I didn't have a lot of Montreal Canadiens fans in my family. My mother was a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan, or is a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan, even though she doesn't really watch hockey that much anymore. My father is and was a big Boston Bruins fan. I had an uncle who played hockey in the Boston Bruins organization. My father also played junior hockey in the Quebec Junior League for a Boston Bruins affiliated team. And so they were both, big Bruins fans. So I didn't really get to talk about the Canadians with my family very much. My grandfather was the Canadiens fan in the family, and he was the one who introduced me to the Canadians, thankfully, and he was the one who, I shared my fandom with as a kid. So that was sort of the rest of the time I was dodging bullets from all the Boston Bruins and Toronto Maple Leaf fans in my family. So. That's kind of how we didn't really sit around the dinner table and talk about the Canadians very much. I kind of had to, figure it out for myself. Thank you, Adrian. No mistakes on the report card. I'm glad you agree. You always feel kind of weird giving them check marks across the board, but I think today it was certainly deserved. The first 60-minute game they played in years. I hope it continues. Yeah, I don't know about that, Larry. I don't know if I would say it's the first 60-minute game they've played in years. I think they played the Buffalo game they played, I think, was a pretty good, solid 60 minutes. I think that, certainly the second Detroit game, they played a good full 60 minutes. So, again, I don't think you're ever going to have a scenario where they dominate for a full 60 minutes, where they're, clearly on top of the other team for the entire game. There's always going to be, parts of the game where the other team gets chances and opportunities, and they're going to carry some of the play. The key is, how do you respond to that? Do you allow that to build, and do you allow that to, or do you go to sleep for, a period or 10 minutes or we've seen from the Canadians this year where, they can give up a lot in a short period of time, where they'll kind of stop playing for a little bit, allow 2-3 goals, and the game's over. They don't really have much choice. So you grew up in a sea of Leafs fans. Well, that must have been fun. There's a family member that used to play for the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, Adrian, who's that? Larry says, I grew up 3 miles from the border, 40 minutes south of Montreal, just in New York. Let me guess. Did you grow up in Moores, New York? Or is Moores in Vermont? Moores might be in Vermont. I'm assuming you grew up somewhere down sort of towards Plattsburgh. Down that way? Moore's Forks and Moore's Corner, and is Moore's in New York or is it in Vermont? I'm not sure. Frank says, I like what the sportsman announcer said about the goalie this game. He says, we have a new Ken Dryden. Just a nice comment. Yeah, I mean, again, I assume they were joking about that a little bit of hyperbole, but yeah, I mean, I would be very happy to have the next Ken Dryden. Around Peru or Plattsburgh. Yes, there's a Peru down there in that part. I grew up in the West Island of Montreal, Larry, so I used to spend quite a bit of time down, whether it was in Plattsburgh or Burlington. We used to get down there all the time. What's up, Run with Kings? Welcome back. Good to see you. We used to go to games. My move at the Forum used to be I would go and either buy a standing room ticket or scalp one, and then you would wait. I don't know if you guys ever did this, but you would wait at the door. So if the game started at 7, they would open the door, I believe, I think it was either 5:30 or 6, and they would open all the doors at the exact same time, and all the people with standing room tickets would just beat it for a spot. And if you really wanted to take a risk, you would try and get a standing room spot behind the Reds. If you wanted to just sort of be careful and take it easy, you would go and get a spot behind the Whites. But if you went to try and get a spot behind the Reds and you didn't get there fast enough, you ended up standing behind the Blues, which was not ideal. So there you go. Moors. See, I told you. I know my way around down there. I spent a lot of time down there when I was a kid, when I was younger. Hemmingford is a good spot. Yep, Hemmingford. Jacques Laperriere is related to you, Adrian. That's cool. Jacques Laperriere was the defense coach for the Montreal Canadiens for a really long time when I was a kid. I think Adrian is saying, Larry, that Jacques Laperriere is a relative of his, so that's pretty cool. My uncle played in the Boston Bruins system, but never had the opportunity to play any games in the NHL. He was black and didn't have that opportunity. He was best friends with Willie O'Ree. They played together in minor hockey and in the Quebec Senior League for a number of years. And in fact, he was playing with Willie when Willie got called up to the Bruins. And the story goes, I can't confirm it, but the story is that they actually were going to try and call up both my uncle and Willie O'Ree. But my uncle was injured at the time and never got the opportunity to play in the NHL. So, he had a pretty good career in the International League. He played in Toledo and he played in the Quebec Senior League. There was an interview a number of years ago where Jean Béliveau said that my uncle was one of the best hockey players he ever played with or played against. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool to hear about your uncle when you hear stuff like that. So your father was the barber in Moors. Okay. I had a really good friend in high school whose parents were divorced. His father lived in the West Island where I did, so he went to high school with me, and his mother lived in Moors. Human Kirk, I miss the old Forum. Yeah, I do too. It was a pretty cool spot. I'm still there. You can still see it. It's just not the same anymore. But the old Forum was a cool spot to watch hockey for sure. I get why they can't still play hockey in places like that, but it's unfortunate. But Run with Kings didn't get to see the game, but wow, Dobesh coming in and shutting out the reigning champs the first game. Couldn't be any happier. Yeah, it was a pretty spectacular thing to watch, Run with Kings. It was pretty fun to watch. I was at the Forum for Game 2 and Game 5 of the 93 final. Okay, I was not at any of the final games that year. I was at the game, was it 86 or 93? I think it was actually 86 when Claude Lemieux scored. Was it? I can't remember for that. Claude Lemieux scored a goal in overtime against Hartford. That was a pretty cool game to be at. The other cool game one of the coolest games I was at in Montreal was I was at Guy Lafleur's first game back at the Forum after he went to play for the Rangers. That was pretty cool too. That was a pretty cool spot to be. So Human Kirk, welcome. I don't think you've been here before. I think you're new to the live. I apologize for my voice. For those of you who are just joining, I've had a bit of a cold. I feel a lot better, but I do. It has affected my voice, and I do sound like I'm a prepubescent teenager a little bit. My voice cracking and so on. But I really wanted to go on the air after the game. I wanted to talk about it. So thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. You can subscribe. There's a button right here below the screen where you can hit subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell if you want to get notifications about when we go live. We do this show, Habs After Dark. Habs After Dark. We do this show every night, every game, every Montreal Canadiens game. We go live after the game. We get on the air relatively shortly after the game, usually 10 or 15 minutes after the game ends. We get on the air. We do a review of the game, and then we have a chat about it. Yes. Chips, peanuts, crack pop, ice cream bar de crème en glace. That was the guys that used to sell that stuff. See, this will give you guys some memories since we're talking old Montreal Canadiens stuff. We get this. When this would come on for the Canadiens games, couldn't beat it. Couldn't beat that song. Couldn't beat that. That was like the epitome. That was what you. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But yeah, the Bleu Blanc Rouge song, that was awesome. You know, that song would come on, the Canadiens would come out, you'd hear this. Yeah, so I miss the old Forum Siren, all that stuff. I miss it. Like I said, going down on a weekday night with a standing room ticket that you got for 10 or $15, standing in line at the door and waiting for the doors to open and just making a beeline to that spot as close to the center ice behind the Reds as you could, and you'd stand there. You couldn't leave. You couldn't leave to you couldn't even leave to go get a hot dog. Right? If you had a buddy with you, one of you could leave and go get a hot dog. But if you were by yourself, you couldn't even leave to go get a hot dog because you would lose your spot. So yeah. Anyways, memory lane, down memory lane, guys. It'll be it'll be great. See that I've got this. This is actually a piece of memorabilia that I have. That's really cool too. It's an old Export A calendar. It's got a bunch of stuff in it. It was the calendar that the Canadiens put out. It's got all this really cool stuff. You got the Canadiens there. You got Jean Béliveau. You got the Pocket Rocket. Who else? Réjean Houle, Jacques Lemaire, Yvon Cournoyer. Who else? Lots of guys on there. Serge Savard. That's Jacques Laperriere there, isn't it? We were just talking about Jacques Laperriere. Yeah, that is Jacques Laperriere right there. I know it's hard to see on the screen, but that's Jacques Laperriere right there. Cool. Eddie Palchak. Those of you who used to hang around the Montreal Forum will remember Eddie Palchak as the guy who used to be the equipment manager for the visiting teams, and he used to run around he was with the Canadiens forever. So, yes, Snowbird in Arizona. Why Arizona, Larry? Why Arizona over Florida or California or somewhere like that? Just curious. Human Kirk, I was always in the Blues at the Red Line. My dad's work had season tickets. Lucky for you, Kirk. That's awesome. Go home to Potsdam, New York for the summer. I worked at a camp in upstate New York. I worked at a camp in a town called Warrensburg. I guess it's probably 20 years ago. Well, yeah, it's probably close to 20 years ago now. And one of my buddies, one of my fellow counselors that I met there, went to SUNY Potsdam, and he always used to call it Potsdam Good. He used to be, I forget, he'd always talk. No, there's another school in Potsdam. Isn't Colgate? Is Colgate in Potsdam, or is it Clarkson? Clarkson or Colgate? I think one of those two is in Potsdam. So, yeah. Anyways, Clarkson Golden Knights. So you said that already. I didn't even read that. You were right. Yeah, awesome. Sorry, guys, we got off track there a little bit. Yeah, I mean, takeaways from today's game for me, guys, is I think it's a step in the right direction for the Canadiens. I thought they looked really good. These are the kind of games they have to play against the teams that are better than them, right? They need to beat the shit out of teams like Buffalo. They need to beat the shit out of teams like like the teams that are below them in the standings. They need to move up the rankings, right? So for the last couple years, they've sort of been, a bottom 5 or 6 team, and then now they're going to start to move into that sort of, bottom 10, and then they'll slowly work their way into being contenders for a playoff spot. So they, these are the levels of the teams that they have to beat, and in order for them to move up, these are the kind of games they're going to have to play against the better teams. When they play teams like Florida, when they play teams like Toronto, when they play teams like Colorado, Las Vegas, we saw a victory against Edmonton, right, about a month ago. I think it was a shutout as well, was it not? So again, this is not unprecedented for them. But again, we want to see them start to do it more consistently where, they don't play really well for a couple games and then, fall off the, the edge of the earth for another 4 or 5. They need to start doing this kind of, putting this kind of performance or this kind of effort forward on a regular basis. Jacques Laperriere name is on the Stanley Cup 6 times, won the Calder and the James Norris. Yes, he was a very good defenseman in his day. Very good defenseman, and he was also a really good coach. All right, Frank, I appreciate it. I will hopefully feel better as well. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for all that stuff. I was stationed here at DM. Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you very much. Cool. That's awesome. Was I surprised they gave Dobesh the game against better Florida team instead of giving it to Monty? I will say this. I mean, I was surprised at the timing of all of this. I was surprised with the timing of the Dobesh call-up. I was surprised with the timing of the Caden Primo waivers. I was surprised with all of it. I thought that, if they'd lost confidence in Caden Primo, they would have lost it, 2 weeks ago, right? It's not, they played Montembeault 10 games in a row. It wasn't after the 10th game that they lost confidence in Primo. I would have thought that they would have either, made this move earlier or they would have waited to make it a little bit later. I get that, they had no confidence in Primo and that they didn't want to play him. But again, I don't know that it's the best move bringing up Dobesh or bringing up any, rookie goaltender in the middle of the season. I don't think it's ideal. I really thought that they would have more of a plan in place, that they would have, a veteran backup in place. I don't know that Dobesh for the rest of the year was an ideal decision, and it certainly is a risky one. I mean, obviously it's gone well today, but again, is it possible that it doesn't go well? And if it doesn't go well, what's the backup plan, right? Is it to call up Connor Hughes and hope he does better? I mean, I think that at the end of the day, they need to have a backup plan in place in case things don't work out with Dobesh. And even if they do, is it ideal for Dobesh to be in a backup role where he's only playing every, 5th or 6th game? Like, is that good for his development? Is that good for a 22-year-old goalie, to only be playing, such limited amount of time? So, we'll see. I wasn't surprised that they started him against Florida necessarily. I was just surprised that they made the move now, more than anything else. Yes, 3-0 Edmonton, Montreal over Edmonton a couple months ago. Lose 13 games in a row, sit in the basement, only to eventually make the playoffs. What a story. Who are we talking about? We're talking about Buffalo? You're a Buffalo fan, aren't you, RDP? I think I knew that about you, but Yeah, I mean, if they do, that would be a hell of a story, wouldn't it? Yes, thank you, Frank. Same to you. Hope you have a good one, and we will see you hopefully after the game tomorrow. I don't know, RDP. I don't know. I have a really hard time believing that Kent Hughes made this move without having some sort of backup plan in place. But again, I could be wrong. I feel like there's more going on behind the scenes that we really know about. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, we never get the full info. You're right, Larry. But again, this administration appears to be a little bit more transparent than the organization has been in the past. They appear to be a little bit more measured in their actions, whether it's in response to adversity or whatever. They seem to have a plan in place and a plan that they intend to stick to and to stick with. Right? Like I think it's not the reactive, knee-jerk type of administration that they've had in the past. It's not the Marc Bergevin approach where, if things go badly, you feel like you've got to make some sort of big move to sort it out. You can live with a little bit of disappointment. You know that you're rebuilding. You know that it's going to be tough. You know that you need to be patient, and you're going to allow it to happen. So it did surprise me that they would make a move like this without, sort of having their cards in place or their, it just seemed like a bit of a I don't want to call it a knee jerk reaction because obviously Caden Primo playing poorly is not anything new. But I just thought there would have been a more measured approach to this again because Dobesh could have gone out and laid a complete egg today. Like what happens if Florida had come out today and beats Montreal 9-0? Are you keeping Dobesh around and giving him another shot? What if Caden Primo gets picked up on waivers? Right? Then like what are you going to do down in the American Hockey League? Obviously the best case scenario is for Dobesh to come up and play well, for Caden Primo to not get picked up on waivers and go down and become one of the two goalies in Laval, and hopefully, he can turn his game around and get back to where he needs to be. But again, that's an extremely risky proposition. There's no guarantee of that happening. And for me, you need to sort of prepare for the possibility that doesn't happen. And to me, that's Kent Hughes, right? He's not a guy who takes risks. He's not a guy who, jumps in, he doesn't jump into the water without checking to see how deep it is first, right? So that's just my thought on it. Again, everyone's going to come back and tell me how stupid I was and how wrong I was, if Dobesh, just sort of walks into the backup position and becomes a really good goalie at the NHL level. Everyone's going to say, oh, yeah, I remember when you said that Dobesh shouldn't be called up and that this, that, and the. I mean, they're already doing that. But my point all along was not so much that, Caden Primo shouldn't go. It was more so I thought that the Canadiens should have a firm plan in place, in the event that they did move on from Caden Primo. They had to prepare for the eventuality that he might get picked up on waivers. They had to prepare for the eventuality that, Jakub Dobesh wasn't ready to play in the NHL, or Connor Hughes wasn't ready to play in the NHL. And they've done it anyway. And so we'll see how it turns out. I want it to turn out. Obviously, I'm a Canadiens fan. I would love, Jakub Dobesh to never go back down to the minor leagues again. And, he and Sam Montembeault share the duties for the next 2 or 3 years, until Jacob Fowler is ready to come in, and then they can make a decision on where to go from there. Or maybe Jakub Dobesh comes in and plays so well that he, takes over from Montembeault, and Montembeault becomes the backup. I don't know. I would love for all of that to happen. The Montreal Canadiens having 2 good goalies is obviously something I want to watch. But again, I don't think that it was a gamble. It was a risk. And Kent Hughes doesn't strike me as a gambler, which is why I was surprised at the way it happened. And again, I think that maybe we will still see something happen. Maybe there's a trade in the works. Maybe there's something else going on here. We'll have to wait and see. Kirk says it's a gamble. Yeah. However, if Primo staying is a no-go and an alternative exists in Dobesh, take the risk of him clearing waivers. Well, again, that's easier said than done, Kirk, right? Like you say, an alternative exists in Dobesh, but an alternative, Dobesh being an alternative is not a guarantee. It's, again, the negative of Dobesh, coming up is that, he doesn't do well, that he fails. And so now you've got to find somebody else, which you don't have. And two, you've perhaps, negatively impacted his development. So not only, have you, gotten rid of Primo, which again is probably not that big of a deal at this stage. But, you've impacted Dobesh, who you expect to contribute to the organization, in years to come. So, you say that, an alternative exists in Dobesh, but again, that alternative is not a guarantee. Again, I mean, no alternative is a guarantee, but again, if you go out and hire or trade for or bring in a veteran goaltender to play backup, you don't care if he sucks. If he sucks, you just get rid of him and go out and get somebody else. Like you go out and bring in another veteran backup. Obviously, you don't want him to suck, and you want to bring in a guy who's going to be good. But if Dobesh comes up and he sucks, then you're in a bit of a predicament, right? You're in a predicament with respect to his development, and you're in a predicament with respect to, what do we do next? So that's all I'm saying. Again, every part of my body, every part of my being wants Dobesh to become, a solid goaltender in the NHL, and hopefully, he never goes back to Laval, and this is an upward and an onward and upward situation for Jakub Dobesh. But again, it's not a guarantee. It's risky. I thought that as well, Larry. I thought that as well. So Larry says, I think Primo told them he was done, and he wasn't playing anymore. And that was my first reaction too, Larry. That after the Christmas holiday, he said, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be on the bench. If you don't want to play me, it's 10 games in a row now I've been on the bench. If you don't want to play me, do something about it. And that may be the case, unless he goes down to Laval. And then I don't know. Like, to me, if he initiated all of this, then my sense is that he probably wants out of the organization. And that doesn't seem to be the case. But maybe he gets picked up somewhere. I really don't know. But my initial thought was that Primo might have instigated this whole thing and brought it to the forefront perhaps sooner than the Canadiens were prepared to have it come to the forefront. I agree, Human Kirk. Everything's a risk. But, some risks you can avoid, and some risks like Montembeault getting hurt is a risk that you can't avoid. Sending Caden Primo down to the minors and bringing up Dobesh when you don't have a backup plan or a safety net in place is a risk that you can avoid or at least mitigate, right? You can minimize the potential negative from that risk. So I'm just surprised that they didn't. The trade deadline is soon. That where weird shit is going to happen. The playoffs coming. Teams are going to buy a player from the bottom teams and trade for draft picks. Yeah, I mean, the trade deadline isn't that soon. I mean, the trade deadline, I believe, is in March. So, I mean, we're still a good 3.5 months away from the trade deadline. But yeah, weird stuff does happen at the trade deadline, for sure. The defense played well, covering him today. Human Kirk says, I don't think they were planning that Primo would suck. Otherwise, Jake Allen would have been traded. Yeah, I don't agree with that, Human Kirk. I think that there were other reasons for Jake Allen being traded beyond them thinking that Primo was going to be the better goaltender. I agree that they didn't think that Primo would struggle the way he has this year, especially after the way he played last year. But again, I think there was a lot more that went into the choice between Allen and Primo last year wasn't because they thought that one was better than the other. There were a number of other factors that went into Allen being the guy that they moved. including the fact that Allen is older, including the fact that Allen had more value at the trade deadline than Primo did, and some other things. So again, I don't think the decision was made strictly on the basis that they thought one guy was better than the other. The worst case Habs tanking. Well, the Habs have, again, I hate to be disagreeing with you on everything here. Larry, you say you got that right. I assume you're talking about you got that right when you talk about everything being a risk. But again, I hate to disagree with you. Maybe our definitions of tank are different. I don't think the Canadiens have ever tanked. I don't think the Canadiens have ever sort of said, we're going to do anything that, sort of intentionally, makes us lose. I think that they rebuilt, and, a part of the aspect, one aspect of a rebuild is that you get rid of certain aspects of your roster and your lineup. But I don't think that any of that stuff was ever done with, any type of intentional losing in mind. Certainly, I think if that were the case, they could have certainly done worse over the years. I think that they kind of played the cards that were presented to them, on the basis that they were rebuilding and that they were focusing on younger players. So, again, I'm not a big fan of the word tank because to me it implies that you're losing on purpose. And I don't think the Canadiens have ever done that, let alone in the last 2 years with this rebuild. So, well, Jake Allen got traded, yes, but they had to decide which guy they were going to trade, Adrian. So Adrian says Jake Allen got traded because to get rid of the 3 goalie rotation. Yes, they had to get rid of the 3 goalie rotation, but they could have traded Primo. They could have traded Montemo. They chose to get rid of Jake Allen. What I'm saying is the reason they chose to trade Jake Allen didn't have anything to do with them determining that he was the 3rd best of those 3 goalies. I think it had more to do with the fact that Jake Allen was older and the fact that Jake Allen, as a veteran goaltender, had a little bit more juice on the trade market last year. So, all right, guys, I think I'm going to end the show there. We've been on the air for about an hour and a half now. I appreciate everybody for coming. Adrian, Larry, Kirk, who else is here? RDP, Frank was here earlier. Run with Kings. Who else? Let's see. Let's keep going here. RDP, I already said. Habinations was here. Who else? Dominique Duval was here briefly. Thank you, Dominique. Gary Conway. And Claude Richard was here. So, yeah, we've had a pretty good group in here tonight, guys. I appreciate everybody. Thank you for participating. Thank you for coming by. Once again, if you are here, please subscribe right down here below. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. If you're watching the show on a replay, I also invite you to subscribe. We would really appreciate it. If you're enjoying the content, hit the notification bell, the thumbs up, all that good stuff. We are trying to grow our channel. I do have plans in place to do another show. We do Habs After Dark now. After every Canadiens game, we go on the air about 10 or 15 minutes after the game. But I am looking at bringing on another show, a daytime show that focuses more on current events or current issues with the Canadiens as opposed to focusing on a specific game. It's either going to be called the Habs Day Shift or the Habs Therapy Day. I haven't decided what to call it yet, but it will be coming soon in the new year. We will be doing that as well. So again, the more subscribers we get, the more easily we can do stuff like it. It helps the channel. Again, 500 subscribers is a magic number for YouTube. We're trying to get there. So if you're watching live, if you're watching in a replay, please hit that subscribe button. It certainly does help me. It helps us. It shows you that shows us that you're enjoying the content, and allows us to build our channel. So we really would appreciate it. So that's just about it for now, guys. Again, 4-0 Montreal. Jakub Dobeš with a shutout in his very first NHL game. Kirby Dach. I'm not going to say Kirby Dach is back, but he certainly looked a lot better today. He scored 2 goals. Alex Newhook on the same line with 2 assists, so that second line was buzzing today. Patrick Laine looked really good as well. He was a big factor in both of those Kirby Dach goals. And the Montreal Canadiens looked really good. They take 4-0 win over the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. The road trip continues tomorrow in Tampa. Game time, I believe, is 3 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. here for me in Nova Scotia. So we will see you after that game, and we will have another show then. So, like I said, if you enjoyed the show, please subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. If you're watching in a replay, give us a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button, and tell your friends if you think they'll enjoy this content. Let them know, and invite them to come and join us as well. So that's just about it for today. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Habinations. Thank you, RDP. Thank you, everybody who's still here. Adrian, Kirk, everybody. I had a great time. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll definitely see you in the next one. And I hope you have a great rest of your night. Peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliners